Welcome to Celeb Scene Central. It should not surprise you that, as a writer, I took some literature classes in college. But my favorite class revolved around Gothic literature. Yes, that's with a capital G. None of the authors wore black lipstick, had black nail polish, or wore skinny black jeans, to my knowledge, but the vibes and the aesthetic of the Gothic certainly have become a part of pop culture. It shouldn't surprise anyone that novels like Frankenstein, Dracula, The Castle of Otranto, and The Portrait of Dorian Gray all fall under this subgenre of literature. Authors like Mary Shelley, Bram Stoker, Emily Bronte, and Edgar Allan Poe all helped pioneer the subgenre, while authors like Shirley Jackson, Anne Rice, and even Stephen King helped it evolve. This is the subgenre that birthed Dark and Stormy Nights and the modern vampire and it's clear from this season of House of the Dragon that it inspired the gloomy and eerie design behind Harrenhal, which just makes Daemon's, Matt Smith, storyline at the haunted castle all the better. What exactly is Gothic literature? The first thing you need to know about Gothic fiction is that it comes from the larger umbrella of Romanticism. No, this does not refer to romantic books or stories involving romance and love, though it can, but rather the entire Romantic era. At the risk of turning too much into a two-bit college TA, Romanticism was the most prevalent from the late 18th century to the mid-19th century, and it affected not only literature but also art, philosophy, and architecture. It emphasized individualism as a direct reaction to the Enlightenment, a period dominated by rationalism. It embraced an appreciation for the beauty of nature in all aspects, extreme emotion and favoring the senses over intellect, and looking inward to yourself and examining personality and mood, even mental state. This is the era that birthed the Byronic hero, which evolved into what we know as the anti-hero. It was a time when the rules were ignored and creativity was heralded, the spiritual and imaginary were valued. Interest in folk cultures and the medieval past spiked. More importantly, relating to the Gothic, it was a time when people became curious about the weird, the grotesque, the occult, and even the satanic. Gothic literature, in particular, embraced this aesthetic. Dark and Stormy Nights became the norm, mysterious strangers, haunted and dilapidated castles, mysterious dreams and visions, and the use of witchcraft and magic all became embedded into the subgenre. As it evolved and developed, Gothic horror developed into the genre as we know it today. There's a distinct sense of unease, one that is often oppressive, and because of that, the setting of a Gothic tale is vital. The story is often underpinned by a tale about the battle between humanity and unnatural forces of evil. And while I wouldn't necessarily call what is happening to Daemon at Harrenhal evil, there's something so perfectly spooky about his side quest that it quite literally feels like it is plucked from a book written by Mary Shelley. Daemon's stay at Harrenhal is peak Gothic horror. It's hard not to love the character of Daemon Targaryen. He has a roguish charm that is matched with a bravado and arrogance that borders on the superhuman. If he was a real man, I'd likely hate him and try and stay as far away from him as possible. As a fictional character, he's easily one of the best of the series. When Daemon arrives at the massive castle of Harrenhal, it is out of necessity. Not only has he been essentially cast out after a fight with his queen and wife Rhaenyra, Emma Darcy, but Harrenhal is one of the most important locations in Westeros from a military point of view. It's in the center of the kingdom and the castle is large enough to hold a large host of men. But right when he arrives, it's clear that this castle is not just a building but a living and breathing thing, and one that doesn't seem to really care that a Targaryen prince, or king consort, or king, has arrived at its door. Historically, Harrenhal was created by a villainous character in Westeros history. Harren the Black built Harrenhal like a vanity project. It took almost 40 years to make and was essentially built on the backs of thousands of men. Yes, even the sacred weirwood trees were cut down in order to help construct it. Harren is not well loved in history, but in a historic twist of irony, not long after his castle was done, Aegon the Conqueror came flying into Westeros and began his conquest with his sister wives. When Harren the Black refused to bow to Aegon, Aegon blasted the castle with unrelenting dragonfire from his dragon Balerion and killed Harren and his sons on the spot. Since then, the castle has had a reputation for being cursed. When Daemon lands on Caraxes and stalks the halls of the castle, the set is built in an almost labyrinthian way, as described by the production designers in the docuseries The House That Dragons Built. There are bats everywhere, the rain is bleeding through the castle stone, and there's a howling wind. Hell, the place even has its own resident witch in Alice Rivers, Gail Rankin. In a chilling moment, when Daemon is walking through the halls in episode 3, he turns a corner and distinctly hears the voice of a young Rhaenyra, Millie Alcock, calling his name. But as with all Gothic stories, the setting is not just a physical location, it plays an integral part in the story. Every single dream and vision Daemon suffers through gives me life. Until now, House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones have rarely left the genre of high fantasy. There's dragons, there's medieval politics, there's a plethora of made-up languages, it's the epitome of the genre. But Harrenhal is a different beast. It's supernatural. Not only does it almost always seem to be creepy and dark in the castle, but it leaves the occupant suffering from vivid nightmares and visions. What really made me fall in love with this segment of Season 2, even if it often feels so removed from the story at large, is how it fully leans into Gothic horror. As described by librarian Amanda Pagan, early novels about Gothic horror featured discussions of morality, philosophy, and religion, with the evil villains most often acting as metaphors for some sort of human temptation the hero must overcome. This Harrenhal story uses the Gothic as a vehicle for Daemon's character development and exploration. It looks at the morality and consequences of his actions, the ones he distinctly feels guilty about but won't admit. He is confronted by a young Rhaenyra who guilts him over the events of Blood and Cheese and the killing of Jaehaerys. She is, ghoulishly, sewing the head of a child onto a body. She then rounds on him again in episode 4 about his ambition to be known as Viserys, Paddy Considine, heir. Lena, Nana Blondell, corners him in episode 5 about his neglect of his daughters, Bela, Bethany Antonia, and Rena, Phoebe Campbell. He is even seduced by his own mother, Alyssa, Emmeline Lambert, who praises him as the better son in comparison to his brother. Overwhelmed by the castle, Daemon falls into his temptations and pushes to supplant Rhaenyra in episode 5, urging men to bow to him and call him king, insisting that when he takes King's Landing, it will be Rhaenyra who must come to him and accept that they will rule together. To some, this might feel like a lot is being piled on top of Daemon, who, week by week, veers further from the version of his character that exists in Fire and Blood. But to me, this is better than anything I could have dreamed of. Oftentimes, Daemon would do something, such as abandon Rhaenyra in her time of need, ignore his daughters, be cruel to his brother, and we were simply left to accept that that's just Daemon. He suffers no consequences for his actions because the people who love him repeatedly forgive him. Viserys forgives Daemon for mocking his dead child and dead wife. Rhaenyra proposes to Daemon and asks him to marry her even after he's abandoned her in the past. And his daughters can't really escape the paternal bond and the innate desire to form a connection with a parent. This trial at Harrenhal is essential to Daemon's character because he has to face his demons in order to either come out stronger or become completely broken by them. If this was a traditional Gothic novel, there's a high likelihood of the latter. But, since this is a TV show and there's still a lot of story to be told, maybe Daemon will survive this baptism by fire. House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 5 is a tipping point for Daemon. Never has Daemon been in a lower spot than in episode 5, and this is coming from a guy who once faced off the Crabfeeder and his army on a suicide run before going home and ending up in the dusty basement of a brothel with a killer hangover. The Daemon of episode 5 is a tortured man. He's let his ambition swallow him whole, becoming a tyrant who only is regarded with hatred by the River Lords. Not only is he now Rhaenyra's greatest liability, but he's his own worst enemy. Just when we think that his desire for the throne and the crown has swallowed him whole, Lena appears and reminds him of his children. This hard knock back to reality, along with the River Lords accusing him of killing Jaehaerys, something he technically did by proxy, disorients him. By the end of the episode, he's a far cry from the swaggering prince we once knew. We could never have had this drastic of an arc for Daemon if it wasn't for Harrenhal and the magic that's baked into the castle. This inescapably bleak place has forced Daemon to look into the darkest mirror, something he's avoided for years, and that, to me, is simply chef's kiss.